Engineer laughs OFF mistake until a surprising kid reveals a hidden fix that saves the project. Jake Reynolds felt the weight of stress wrap around him like a vice as he placed his coffee cup on the desk. It was supposed to be a remarkable day, the unveiling of the community center he had worked tirelessly to bring to life over the last 2 years. Instead, panic simmered beneath the surface. He glanced at the timeline posted on the wall, a cruel reminder of the error he'd made in estimating construction durations. Delays gnawed at his team as the town's whispers morphed from hopeful anticipation to an air of disappointment. He could almost hear the murmurs echoing in the streets, another project doomed to fail. Jake's heart raced. How could he have miscalculated? The project was a promise, a light at the end of a long, dark tunnel. Now it threatened to leave him and his family standing in the shadows of financial strain. The anxious gazes of his wife and children loomed large in his mind, an ever-present reminder that his failures echoed into their lives. What if he couldn't deliver? What if their dreams slipped further from reach because of him? This wasn't just about buildings, it was about their stability, their future. As he paced the dimly lit conference room, he sensed the mounting pressure radiating from his team, each member wearing their unease like a heavy coat. The room, filled with hushed discussions and furrowed brows, felt claustrophobic. He could sense the discontent bubbling beneath the surface, driving home the perfect storm of emotion swelling within him: shame, fear, and the nagging sensation of impending doom. Before we continue, a part of his mind whispered, almost against his will, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The disjointed thoughts swirled as he returned to the problem at hand. Just then, the door cracked open. Emily, his grandfather's quiet granddaughter, slipped in with a tray of sandwiches, unaware of the desperation that thickened the air around them. As she observed Jake's demeanor, her brow furrowed with concern. He could see her hesitation mirrored in her eyes, reflecting more than youth. They hinted at an untapped brilliance lying dormant. Suddenly, out of nowhere, her voice broke the tension. What if we adjusted the design? I noticed, she started, and a flicker of hope ignited within Jake. Yet, skepticism clawed at him. She was just a kid. And yet, as she began to share her thoughts, Jake paused, forced to confront his own preconceptions. Each idea she proposed seemed more insightful than the last. Could he really trust the very spirit of this project, built on his integrity, to a girl barely out of high school? Would it undermine everything he stood for? The treacherous chasm of doubt widened as he weighed the implications of her suggestions. Here she was, shining a light on a fix he had thought impossible. But that glimmer came at a price. Achieving this meant confronting his own insecurities and allowing someone else to share the spotlight. A struggle brewed within him, igniting conflict between ambition and genuine collaboration. He was at a crossroads, and as Emily's voice continued to entwine with his fears and hope, he sensed his resolve starting to waver. Jake felt the tension growing, seeping deeper into his bones as Emily continued to outline her ideas. Each suggestion she made resonated with a clarity he hadn't allowed himself to see. We can modify the load distribution if we adjust the beams here and reinforce the structure, she suggested, her voice steady. A youthful passion radiated from her, and it was infectious. But doubt gnawed at him, an insistent whisper that echoed his age and experience. This isn't a school project, Emily. We're not just playing with design here, these are people's lives, he murmured, more to himself than to her. The realization that her ideas could either save or derail everything astonished him, leaving him to grapple with the implications. In that moment, Jake found himself teetering on the brink of a pivotal transformation. Trusting Emily could mean a new kind of collaboration, but letting her take the reins would expose him his failures and uncertainties laid bare for the world to scrutinize. What if she failed? Was the risk worth it? As silence enveloped the room, punctuated only by the ticking clock, he couldn't ignore the flashes of anger at himself for disregarding fresh perspectives so easily. The ticking grew louder, almost mocking him. This meeting could either mark a new way forward or leave him stranded in his own old patterns. "Your ideas are intriguing," he finally admitted, his voice measured yet hesitant. "Maybe we could explore this further. But, I need to understand what you'd propose in detail." Emily's eyes widened, a spark igniting hope. "I'll draw up some sketches and calculations this evening. We can meet tomorrow." "Sure," he replied, though the sure felt more like a gamble than a promise. As he watched her upbeat demeanor, determination unfurling in her spirit reminded him of the enthusiasm he once had. When had he lost that clarity, that fearless ambition? It lay in the depths of his struggles, buried under layers of fear and a burning need to uphold a facade of competence. Once he was back in his office, Jake found himself staring at the stacks of papers on his desk. Each blueprint bore the weight of his expectations that crushed creativity and risked stifling growth. He realized he'd rooted himself in the notion that experience trumps innovation, but that belief was crumbling in light of Emily's insights. What he needed was not just to improve the project but also to unearth the zeal that once fueled his career. A flicker of determination ignited as he replayed their conversation in his mind. Could he transform himself from a singular leader to a collaborative partner? Allowing others to shine didn't diminish his role, it could enhance it. His heart raced at the thought. This was not merely about saving a project, it was a chance to embrace a new facet of his professional identity, one that he had not realized he craved until now, but the lingering unease gnawed at him. Would he be able to truly trust Emily, or would his apprehensions resurface and sabotage their efforts? As he leaned back in his chair, a seething mix of excitement and anxiety coursed through him. "Tomorrow has to go perfectly," he whispered to himself. If it doesn't, that uncertainty loomed large, clawing at the edges of his resolve. What awaited him was not just a presentation to the team, it was a test of his commitment to change. The hours slipped away in a haze of endless thoughts, and as night fell, he could only anticipate the storm brewing with the dawn. Too much rested on Emily's ideas, and amidst his willingness to collaborate loomed the shadow of doubt. Would he emerge a mentor or would he fall back into the defensive shell he had long inhabited? Jake turned his gaze toward the location of the project, the physical manifestation of his ambition and now possibly a conduit for growth. What lay ahead could redefine everything he believed about success and partnership. As he finally closed his eyes to sleep, the unyielding question remained: in facing the unknown, was he prepared to embrace not just the project's outcome, but also a transformation in himself? The morning light filtered through the blinds of Jake's office, illuminating the chaos of half-completed projects and unresolved tasks sprawled across his desk. He pushed the papers aside, palms sweating against the cool surface as the weight of anticipation pressed down on him. Today felt different. There was a crackling energy in the air, a reminder that change was afoot, whether he was ready for it or not. Jake took a deep breath, the remnants of yesterday's unease mingling with a new anticipation. His mind raced, a clashing storm of doubt and hope. He had committed to this meeting with Emily, and he recognized that in doing so, he was stepping into uncharted waters both exhilarating and terrifying. Would he rise to meet this challenge or falter under the weight of it? As he prepared for their session, concepts from their previous dialogue floated to the forefront of his mind: Emily's proposals of load distribution adjustments, the clever reinforcement strategies. Each idea now seemed like a beacon of potential rather than a source of anxiety. This shift in perspective signaled the beginning of something important, a partnership that could bridge generational gaps in their field. When Emily arrived, armed with sketches and calculations, Jake felt a sudden rush of affection for her vibrant spirit. She exuded an energy he had long forgotten. "Ready for this?" she asked, an eager smile gracing her face. "More than ever," Jake replied, his voice steadying into a newfound resolve. He gestured for her to take the lead, a simple yet profound gesture of trust. As Emily began to lay out her plans, his initial skepticism began to fade. Each of her points was articulated with clarity, her calculations robust and well thought out. Jake listened closely, allowing himself to absorb not just her ideas but also the passion behind them. For the first time in years, he felt a sense of potential blooming within the walls that had once confined him. "I'm convinced we can make this work," he said, his confidence growing. "What you're proposing not only saves the project but also sets a new standard for our approach moving forward." He watched her excitement grow, mirroring the exhilaration surging through him. With each minute that passed, he felt less like a mentor striving to defend his ground and more like a collaborator, an essential piece in a larger puzzle. The shift was subtle yet profound. He could visualize the possibility of a thriving partnership, one that flourished on mutual respect and innovation, but as the discussion progressed, Jake was confronted with a divergence. A significant structural challenge arose that could potentially derail their plans. Emily's confidence flickered slightly. Her previous ideas now sounded fragile in the face of uncertainty. The terror of collapsing under pressure loomed larger than ever as Jake sensed the crumbling foundation beneath their optimism. "Maybe our calculations aren't up to scratch," she suggested tentatively, a storm of anxiety clouding her voice. In that instant, Jake felt the urge to retreat into familiar territory, a default response of defense against emerging threats. He lingered on the choice, to dismiss her concerns outright or to embrace this moment as an opportunity for growth. His heart hammered in his chest. What would be the cost of brushing her off once more? That thought ignited a flicker of realization within him. Emily had shown him a new way, a chance to extend trust and validate partnership over hierarchy. "No," Jake replied, firm yet reassuring. "Let us sit with this. What can we try instead? How do we address this together?" The words felt foreign yet exhilarating. With renewed vigor, she pulled out her sketches, and together they brainstormed, bouncing ideas off one another, igniting a creative wildfire. By the end of their session, the fear hadn't vanished entirely, but it had transformed, coalescing into a palpable sense of determination to overcome the obstacles. Jake realized the true transformation wasn't just about the project. It was about him stepping into vulnerability. Recognizing that collaboration was strength, not a weakness. As they finally wrapped up, he felt lighter, freer. The whispers of doubt diminished, replaced instead with solid resolve, but as he looked out the window, seeing the daunting structure that awaited their planning, the old fears remained. What if this was only the beginning of a much tougher challenge? What lay beyond this moment of triumph? The storm outside began to brew, matching the turbulence inside him, reminding him that this was just the start. Tomorrow, they would face the team. His commitment might come under scrutiny, and with it, his ability to maintain this newfound approach. The road ahead shimmered with uncertainty, and one question eclipsed them all: could he trust himself to fully embrace this collaborative spirit in front of others? The following day dawned gray and heavy, a mood reflected in the clouds that loomed ominously above. Jake tightened the collar of his jacket as he approached the office, unease creeping in once more. This was it. Today, he would present their collaborative plans to his team, and the thought sent a fresh surge of anxiety through him. Inside, the hum of conversation filled the air, but Jake felt isolated, scrutinizing the expressions of his colleagues. They were a seasoned group, experts in their fields, accustomed to the rigidity of traditional methodologies. Jake could almost feel the invisible walls closing in as he sat up in the conference room, Emily entering moments later, unaware of the turmoil in his chest. "Ready to do this?" she asked, her optimism contrasting starkly with his own apprehension. "Let's just see how it goes," he replied, forcing a smile that felt more plastic than genuine. As the meeting commenced, Jake could feel the energy in the room shift. Before presenting their ideas, he scanned the faces before him, some curious, some skeptical, others flat-out dismissive. He gave a quick nod to Emily, emboldened by their earlier brainstorming. She launched into the presentation, her voice steady and clear, reverberating with the enthusiasm that had fueled their late-night discussions. Jake joined her, leaning into the strategy they had developed together. They navigated through diagrams and figures, highlighting the innovative approaches they envisioned, but then, as they reached the crux of their proposal dealing with the structural challenge that had threatened to undermine their plans, Jake felt a collective intake of breath from the team. The room hung heavy with skepticism. Faces hardened. Questions erupted like firecrackers. How can we trust these calculations? One senior engineer challenged, crossing his arms defiantly. You're suggesting a radical shift without enough testing. Jake's heart raced. This was a moment he had anticipated but now felt woefully unprepared for. In the swirl of pressure, he glimpsed Emily's eyes fierce and steady. Her spirit anchored him as he grappled with an instinct to retreat. Perhaps we should consider alternative perspectives, he interjected, making a choice to stand firm. Emily and I have no intention of dismissing concerns. We are open to your insights and any further analysis that can strengthen this initiative. The team seemed to settle, unsure how to react. Jake stood there, aware that the room's energy depended on his ability to balance confidence with vulnerability. This isn't just about us being right, he continued, drawing on each moment of collaboration they had shared. It's about leveraging all our strengths to navigate this project. As the comments volleyed back and forth, he noticed Emily, her mind visibly churning. She leaned in, excitedly suggesting a unique approach she had considered during their sessions. An idea sparked from her determination, a method they had both researched but hadn't yet fully articulated. What if we perform a series of smaller tests, segmenting different load distributions before finalizing our designs? She said. This way, we can validate the calculations in real time while simultaneously addressing structural concerns. A moment passed, underscored by muted murmurs around the room, as her proposal hung in the air, challenging skepticism with potential. Jake felt a jolt of pride. Here was Emily, speaking confidently among seasoned professionals. He could feel the tide shifting toward possibility. Slowly, nods began to ripple through the team, tentative but growing in momentum. The initial hesitance seemed to soften under the weight of their collective expertise. As the discussion continued, Jake found himself engaging with criticism, addressing concerns instead of defending his ground. It felt raw and liberating. At last, they were weaving a fabric of collaboration layered with trust and expertise from all sides. Yet even as he relished this breakthrough, a familiar frisson of fear tinged the back of his mind. What if this newfound teamwork crumbled under greater pressure? What if they faced criticism that would shake his faith in their direction? Despite the progress, the whispers of doubt loomed large. What if the team didn't fully embrace a vision that was different from their norms? As the meeting concluded, an unexpected relief washed over him. They were on a path to collaboratively mending fractures instead of reinforcing them. But as he walked with Emily back to their office, that unsettling question lingered: how far could they push this newfound synergy when the stakes rose higher, and the possible backlash loomed ahead? Tomorrow would hold new challenges, not only from the team but from the very foundation of their approach. Jake steeled himself, knowing with every stride that the real test was just beginning. Jake awoke to the soft buzz of his alarm, the glow of dawn creeping through his room, though the day ahead felt heavy. The exhilarating rush from yesterday's meeting had faded, leaving behind a mixture of anticipation and dread. He sat on the edge of his bed, grappling with the realization that yesterday had been merely the first step in a much longer journey. The shift in team dynamics ignited something within him, yet fear tainted his optimism. As he prepared for the day, Jake glanced at the reflection in the mirror. The suit he wore felt like a cocoon designed to protect him from the pressure, but he questioned if it would suffocate rather than empower him. He needed to summon the innovator he had been, the one who was unafraid to dream and challenge the status quo. On his way to the office, he rehearsed outcomes in his mind. What if his peers pushed back harder today? The confidence he had briefly felt yesterday could easily unravel under scrutiny. Yet, beneath the doubt was a deepening resolve to advocate for change and creativity. They had cracked open a window, a chance to breathe fresh ideas into a stale environment. Entering the office, he saw Emily at her desk, her fingers dancing across the keyboard. Her focus was intoxicating, and it propelled him forward. "How did you sleep?" she asked without looking up, her enthusiasm infectious. "Better than expected," he replied, surprising himself at the genuine note in his voice. "Good," she said, finally looking at him. "I think that presentation shifted things. We can build off that momentum." Jake absorbed her words, feeling a flicker of hope. Right. But I need to think about how we diversify our testing without losing support. Emily nodded. We could draw from other departments' input, showcase past successes that used similar strategies. It might help sway the skeptics. As they brainstormed, their ideas alternated between daring innovations and cautious realism. Jake realized he was gathering information, understanding the past failures, both his own and the team's. Each revelation was an opportunity for growth. Yet, he knew that innovation required both courage and rigor. Suddenly, their supervisor entered, face lined with concern. Jake, I need you to prepare a report on the concerns raised last week. There are financial implications to consider, she warned, her tone decidedly formal. With a tight knot forming in his stomach, he asked, are they doubting our proposal? Let's just say there's a bit of unease among the higher-ups, she replied. You've got a chance to win them over, though. This discussion felt like a challenge, a declaration of war against fear. Jake exhaled deeply, deciding to confront the daunting task head-on. That evening, he would pull together metrics and test data while also showcasing the team's newfound collaborative spirit. Gripped by determination, he dove into number crunching, proposing methods to solidify their proposal while simultaneously managing the team's concerns. As he worked, he fueled the thrill that ran in the undercurrents of failure and fear. Each data point was a step toward solidifying his voice and vision within a chorus of expertise. Later that week, he approached a younger engineer, Sam, whose knack for problem-solving and out-of-the-box thinking often went unnoticed. Jake felt an unspoken kinship with the quiet talent. Both experienced their share of marginalization within the firm. Pushing through his apprehension, Jake broached a partnership. I could use your insights on some of these tests. You see things differently. Want to help? Sam's eyes lit up with surprise and excitement. Yeah. Absolutely. As they began to collaborate on addressing the concerns in the proposal, Jake quickly noticed Sam's ability to simplify complex issues into practical solutions. They worked long into the evening, sharing not just their work but thoughts and fears, vulnerabilities surfacing as they connected. Feeling emboldened, Jake realized this alliance could lead to innovation beyond his original plans. Yet he also wondered if bringing a voice like Sam's into the spotlight would amplify the risk or the reward. In the days that followed, Jake's confidence deepened. Yet it remained tethered to a fear of vulnerability that the moment he stepped into a leadership role, he could be stripped of the support he had fostered. The day of the rescheduled presentation loomed, and Jake wrestled with the prospect of failure. This was not merely about defending his ideas, it was about standing firm for an evolved vision of collaboration, something new and risky held quickly by a thread. As he rehearsed his notes, he couldn't shake off the sensation that this was merely the prelude. The day would unveil not just their work, but a test of the trust he had slowly cultivated. How far Theo could push this new dynamic remained a question, and Jake was determined to find out. With each breath, he fortified his resolve. He had built a team, he had made a name for himself. Now, he had to see what that truly meant when the test came to fruition. Would he embrace both the risks and rewards of his evolving role, or would fear dictate his next move? The day arrived, drenched in tension and potential. Jake stood in front of the sleek conference room, the polished table gleaming under fluorescent lights that flickered with an unsettling intensity. His heart raced as he replayed conversations in his mind, weaving from one potential objection to another. He had spent countless hours working on the proposal and had run through every possible scenario with Sam. Yet, as he prepared to present, he couldn't help but question whether they had truly amassed enough support. The room filled slowly with idling executives, their skepticism palpable. The team's past performance loomed over him like an ominous cloud, and Jake felt their critical eyes weighing him down. This wasn't merely a chance to showcase his findings, it was about overcoming the shadows of doubt that had plagued both him and his team in the previous months. Jake, are you ready? Emily's voice sliced through his turbulent thoughts. He turned to her with a forced smile. Ready as I'll ever be. She gave him an encouraging nod, her belief in him reigniting his resolve. Stepping to the front, he faced the panel, each face a mix of caution and anticipation. Clearing his throat, he took a moment to gather his thoughts as the presentation screen flickered to life behind him, a tangible representation of their collaborative effort. "I want to thank you for giving us this opportunity to present our revised proposal," he began, the words feeling foreign yet oddly empowering. As he progressed, outlining the innovative strategies and insights gathered from his discussions with Sam and Emily, he felt a wall of vulnerability begin to crumble. Each data point was now not just numbers, they represented struggles shared, ideas birthed from sleepless nights, and the unwavering determination to shift the paradigm of their work. Yet, just as Jake began to sense a burgeoning confidence, one executive, a formidable opponent of change, interrupted. "But what makes you think this will work, especially given past failures? I still see no concrete assurances that this won't waste time and resources." Cold dread washed over Jake, momentarily immobilizing him. Could he pivot back from this? But then he remembered Sam's contributions, the unique insights he had distilled from the chaos. "It's about progress and adaptability," Jake asserted, finding his voice. "We've analyzed past missteps critically. Our collaboration with other departments will ensure that we anticipate challenges. And, if I may, allow Sam to present a potential solution he discovered." The murmurs from the executives quelled as Sam stood. His hesitance was evident, but determination flickered in his expression. Jake watched, heart racing, amplifying a sense of shared vulnerability and strength within the room. As Sam shared a specific technique he had developed to optimize testing, Jake remembered the binders of feedback from their earlier tests, realizing how they had turned fears into focused solutions. After the presentation, the air buzzed with conversations, the air thick with uncertainty but also curiosity. Had they planted a seed of doubt in the executives' minds regarding the old ways? Just as Jake felt a glimmer of hope, their supervisor leaned into him, whispering, "You still have a long way to go to earn their trust. They're not easily swayed." Jake nodded, understanding the challenge ahead. The small victories today had shifted perceptions, but lingering skepticism was not yet quelled. After the meeting, Jake joined Sam and Emily, their faces illuminated by flickers of success but obscured by the daunting journey still ahead. "You did great back there," Emily beamed at Sam, who barely managed a shy smile. "Couldn't he have done it without you too?" he replied, a hint of pride seeping into his voice. Jake's exhilaration was tainted by dread, an understanding settling within him. This was only the first hurdle. They needed to press on, solidify a foundation that could withstand scrutiny, and transform feedback into proactive solutions they could implement. In embracing this collaborative journey, Jake realized that challenge lay not just ahead in the boardroom discussion but also within himself. Now, he knew he had to foster an environment where ideas would flow freely, not only his but Sam's and others like him. With determination surging through his veins, Jake turned to Emily and Sam. "Let's capitalize on this momentum and dive back in. We need to anticipate every question and counter every concern." As they gathered their materials, a sudden intuition struck Jake. This was more than just a project, it was about redefining how they led within the team. They could harness the power of each voice, each unique insight, into creating a new narrative. But just then, a notification buzzed on his phone, causing his heart to race again, a message from the higher-ups requesting a follow-up meeting. The time had come to face the real challenge. Jake felt the weight of the moment settle over him. Would they take the next steps together, or would he struggle to maintain the fragile trust he had begun to nurture? The notification on Jake's phone felt like a thunderclap in the stillness of the office. The higher-ups wanted a follow-up meeting, and the pressure was immense. Jake's mind churned as he mentally mapped out the discussions he had witnessed in the past. His stomach churned at the thought of another round with the same executives, now with even more scrutiny due to the initial presentation, a small victory tempered by the larger storm that loomed. "Let's focus," he said, as Sam and Emily exchanged uneasy glances. "We need to be prepared. This is the moment we can either elevate our project or crash back down into doubt." With a sense of urgency, they retreated to a small conference room, walls adorned with whiteboards cluttered with faded strategies from previous initiatives that had failed to take off. They needed a fresh perspective. Jake felt a shift within him as he began to see this not as a burden but as an opportunity to infuse new life into their efforts. Let us pinpoint the weaknesses in the proposal and imagine how we can address them, Jake urged, feeling an undeniable sense of responsibility taking hold. He wrote down the criticisms from the last meeting, each comment a potential barrier they could dismantle. What if we turned every concern into a talking point? How can we transform resistance into reasons for change? As they discussed, a surprising realization began to settle over Jake. His ability to adapt was his greatest asset. He had always clung tightly to his original ideas, hesitant to shift gears. But now, he saw that embracing flexibility wasn't a sign of weakness, it was a fundamental part of leadership. Sam contributed an overview of their previous tests. His voice steadied as he detailed the missteps linked to a lack of collaborative feedback. By leveraging everyone's insights, he proposed, we can create a more robust strategy that not only anticipates questions but gives our audiences a sense of ownership in our vision. Exactly, Jake responded, a flicker of excitement igniting in his chest. If we can present a unified front, it demonstrates we're all on board with this strategy. It's not just about numbers, it's about revitalizing our narrative together. Emily chimed in, noting, we should incorporate some real-time data visualizations that highlight our adaptability. Show them the trajectory, not just the destination. Fueled by this unexpected surge in creativity, Jake urged them to mock up a new presentation and rehearse in preparation for the meeting. The collaborative environment they built evolved into an organic exchange of ideas, and Jake felt his insecurities begin to diminish. No longer was he just the orchestrator, he was part of a team symphony, each member contributing to a harmonious solution. As the countdown to the follow-up meeting approached, Jake noticed an unfamiliar sense of calm enveloping him. He had prioritized collective input, and as he observed Sam's burgeoning confidence and Emily's unwavering support, he felt the power of collaboration transforming them from a struggling team into a dynamic force. However, just as he began to feel optimistic, a nagging thought crept back in. This was still just the setup. Would the executives see the merit in their new approach? Would they be receptive to this renewed vision, or would their skepticism sabotage the potential change? The moment felt precarious, and Jake couldn't shake the anticipation building within him. As they made their way to the meeting room, he glanced at his phone again. It vibrated with another message from a senior executive. What if I can't convince them? He wondered, a familiar doubt gnawing at his resolve. Was this new strategy enough, or had he underestimated the depth of their cynicism? Jake steeled himself, pushing aside the fear as they stepped into the room, determined to present a united front and reveal the commitment that had galvanized them in this endeavor. He took a breath and locked eyes with both Sam and Emily. Together, they advanced into the unknown, ready to face whatever came next, yet aware that the perceptions of those seated before them could tip the balance between success and failure. In that instant, he felt a potent mix of dread and exhilaration swirl inside him, two opposing forces that thrummed in perfect harmony. As the doors swung open, Jake knew this was just the beginning. But was he truly ready to unveil everything they had crafted together, especially when so much was at stake? The room buzzed with tension as Jake stepped inside, the harsh glare of conference lights contrasting with the weight of anticipation hanging in the air. The executives sat before him, their faces a mix of curiosity and skepticism. He swallowed hard, taking a moment to gather his thoughts, striving to channel the collective efforts of his team into a coherent message that would resonate. As Jake began, he focused on the numbers, data points showcasing projected growth and impact. Yet, as he spoke, he couldn't ignore the creeping sensation that he was losing the audience. Their eyes glazed over slightly, hinting at a disconnection from what he had hoped would engage them. Perhaps this was what the last presentation had felt like too. Drawing on the discussions he had with Sam and Emily, Jake shifted tactics mid-sentence. Instead of just focusing on the outcomes, let us dive into our process and how we got here, he proposed. A ripple of interest flickered among the executives. Jake gestured toward the first slide of their newly designed presentation, where visualizations transformed dry data into dynamic stories. This is where we faced challenges, he indicated, highlighting areas of collaboration failure. This is where we listened to feedback and pivoted our approach. Each step has shaped our current solution. He watched as some furrowed brows relaxed and heads nodded along, sensing their engagement growing. He was no longer merely presenting numbers, he shared a narrative, a reflection of growth, collective tension, and resolution. As he articulated the challenges faced, his conviction deepened. He pulled in anecdotes from Sam's updates and Emily's insights, transforming hard statistics into relatable stories. Each mistake wasn't just a setback, it was an opportunity to listen to each other and to our clients. However, despite shifting dynamics, Jake couldn't shake the looming doubt. Was he leading them toward a tipping point or spiraling into familiar uncertainty? He glanced at the whiteboard, glistening with original ideas that had now blossomed into strategies. It was a tangible representation of their growth, both personally and as a team. As the meeting progressed, intrigue bounced around the room like ping-pong, yet one executive with piercing eyes remained stoic. Her silence was unnerving. Jake had always felt the weight of her skepticism, and right now, it settled like lead on his shoulders. "What's your take on it?" he finally dared to ask, attempting to break the tension that had coiled tighter with every passing minute. Her gaze sharpened. "You talk about process, but how will you maintain momentum?" Jake's mind raced. This was his chance to illustrate resilience. Through continuous feedback loops, he answered, pushing aside the anxiety that threatened to ensnare him yet again. "We are committed to not just a solution but an evolving dialogue." The executive leaned back, arms crossed, considering his response. Jake sensed a faint shift, maybe he had struck a chord. They needed to see his team not only capable of responding to demands but also defining the narrative around the project. As minutes ticked by, he presented a scenario. What if they invited stakeholders to participate in further development? Extracting value became a crucial part of their strategy, demonstrating that they weren't merely dictating solutions but rather co-creating them. Suddenly, a young intern seated at the back raised a hand. "What if we include a prototype demonstration?" she suggested, catching everyone's attention. The room fell silent as the idea hovered suspended in the air. Jake's heart raced with a mix of fear and hope. Could the intern's proposal bridge the gap? He glanced nervously at his colleagues. Sam and Emily's eyes lit up, realizing the power of incorporating real-time feedback during the meeting, something they hadn't even considered. "Let us explore that," Jake said, almost breathless with excitement. The intern smiled, and for the first time, Jake felt the team's synergy truly align, yet even in this wave of optimism, uncertainty lingered. Would they be able to execute this change on the fly? Could the momentum sustain? As Jake resumed his discussion, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was a defining moment not just for the project but for himself as a leader. He realized he had transitioned from simply presenting to actively listening, adapting, and cultivating ideas. And as the meeting continued, that familiar knot in his stomach twisted again. What if the executives turned the intern's suggestion into yet another critique? The stakes were high, and the outcome was still unknown. Jake exhaled, ready to navigate these treacherous waters, aware that his evolving leadership would either solidify their standing or plunge them further into chaos. Would this emergent collaboration be enough to secure their project's future? Jake's mind buzzed as he wrapped up the meeting, adrenaline coursing through him. The intern's suggestion had ignited sparks of engagement and camaraderie in a room that had felt so sterile moments before. He thanked everyone and dismissed them, the executives murmuring among themselves, a mixture of curiosity and contemplation evident in their expressions. Stepping out into the hallway, Jake leaned against the cool wall, inhaling deeply. Despite the brief exhilaration, he was haunted by the nagging thought, had he truly won them over, or was it just a temporary reprieve? The enormity of what lay ahead began to manifest as he mulled over strategies to integrate the prototype demonstration. He needed to channel the momentum of today's meeting into actionable steps, especially if he wanted to prove that the ideas emerging from his team were not merely flukes. Back at his desk, the hollow sound of the office filled the void of adrenaline. Sam and Emily arrived, their faces flushed with a mix of excitement and apprehension as they debated the logistics of creating a prototype with only a week to prepare. Jake's heart raced at the thought. "We need to schedule a brainstorming session immediately," he urged, already imagining the late nights they might have to endure. As they gathered around a whiteboard strewn with hastily scribbled notes, Jake felt a shift occur not just in the team's dynamics but within himself. He was steering the ship now, fully aware that the direction they took was intrinsically linked to his ability to unify their collective creativity. This realization was both empowering and terrifying. The prospect of failure loomed larger, urging him to push his leadership in a way he hadn't before. Questions flooded his mind. Would their ideas resonate with the stakeholders? What if the prototype flopped during presentation? These uncertainties were mitigated by a surprising clarity. "Let us showcase not just the finished product but also our process," Jake voiced, channeling the lessons he'd learned from his earlier missteps. Sam and Emily nodded appreciatively, buoyed by his newfound determination. Late into the night, they sketched and resketched, researching new ideas abroad until the fluorescent lights hummed softly around them. There was a sudden rush of energy as the team worked in concert. A shared commitment began to weave itself into the fabric of their collaboration. They were no longer just individuals struggling under the weight of expectations but a cohesive unit with a clear purpose. For the first time, Jake felt his confidence align with their collective potential. However, the challenges were daunting. A cacophony of what-ifs echoed in his mind as his vision expanded. Throughout the process, Jake recognized he was often the weakest link in communication. His instinctive urge had been to dictate what the team needed to do, yet now he recognized the importance of soliciting input from every member actively. His breakthrough came when he approached the intern again, inviting her to take the lead on the prototype. "You brought this idea to life. Your insights could make it resonate even more with the executives," he said, observing her surprise swiftly morph into determination. As days melted into frenzied preparation, Jake noted his growth. He began to embrace vulnerability, allowing his team's voices each contributing an invaluable perspective to shape the project further. Yet, in the back of his mind, the specter of the executive's lingering skepticism gnawed at him, reminding him that this was merely one step in a long and unpredictable journey. The day of the prototype demonstration dawned, and tension pooled heavily in the atmosphere. Jake could sense the stakes: his leadership, his team's collective talent, and the foundations of what could be thematyping all on the line. Could their combined creativity withstand scrutiny? Would they emerge from this in triumph or find themselves back where they began, mired in doubt? As he stood before the gathered executives, his heart thudded in his chest. Everything was set. The interns stepping forward, the presentation format shifting fluidly like the current. Would this ripple of collaboration tip the balance in their favor, or would they find themselves back at square one, caught in a cycle of skepticism and reform? The moment had come to find out, and he steeled himself amidst the heavy silence. With a final breath, Jake faced the assembled team of executives, his heart racing in a way it had not in years. The atmosphere buzzed with anticipation, palpable tension echoing in the tightly packed room. Today was not just another presentation, it was the culmination of everything he had fought for, not only professionally but personally. "As you all know, we've taken a transformative approach to our proposed project. Today, we're not just presenting a final product," Jake began, his voice unwavering, "but unveiling the journey, a collaborative effort built upon insights gathered from our team, including fresh perspectives that have reshaped our vision." He gestured toward the intern, whose passion sparked as she shared the prototype's innovative features. The room was alive with engagement, eyes that had once glazed over now leaning in as they absorbed the carefully crafted words that flowed from Jake's mouth. As she spoke, Jake felt the weight on his shoulders lighten, pride swelling within him. This was not his accomplishment alone, it was a testament to the talented individuals surrounding him. With each unveiling slide showcasing their combined efforts, Jake noted the subtle shifts in the room, the nods of agreement, the curious expressions starting to turn into genuine intrigue. It was a power he hadn't expected, a realization that collaboration could yield not just results, but a reinvigorated sense of purpose within himself. "What you've seen today is not just a product, it reflects our commitment to adaptability and open communication. We've built a framework to allow continuous feedback loops, ensuring that all stakeholders have a voice in this process. Each suggestion, critique, and innovation has shaped what stands before you now. As he spoke, echoing Emily and Sam's contributions, recognition unfurled across the faces in the audience. The skepticism that had clouded their earlier meetings began to dissipate. He could see it, an unspoken acknowledgement of the teamwork, the shared ownership, and it felt invigorating. With the presentation winding down, Jake opened the floor for questions and deliberation. The executives responded with thoughtful inquiries, but now, rather than retreating into submission, he felt more compelled than ever to engage with their critiques and lean into the discussions. He didn't shy away from admitting areas of concern. Instead, he invited further collaboration to refine their approach. As the initial critiques transformed into constructive dialogues, Jake realized he had proven his greatest challenge: trusting others and finding strength in vulnerability. This new dynamic fostered innovation, and in doing so, created a shared narrative that resonated more deeply than any solitary triumph ever could. By the end of the meeting, as applause filled the conference room, he exchanged glances with Emily and Sam. They had risen together, forging a partnership built on insights, respect, and mutual courage. The executives voiced encouragement and relief that the tide was shifting and that their initial hesitation around the project was now tempered with hope. As Jake stood at the front of the room soaking in their approval, he felt a transcendent sense of fulfillment wash over him. He had not only salvaged a project, he had transformed how he viewed leadership and collaboration, realizing it was an ongoing journey rather than a destination. In the weeks that followed, as the project progressed into the implementation phase, Jake found himself more confident, balancing creativity with strategy, always inviting collaboration where he once felt threatened by it. He shared leadership roles like he had once hoarded them, watching as the team blossomed together. Jake Reynolds had emerged not merely as a project manager but as a facilitator of innovation. He had conquered not just the fears of failure but the insecurities that had long haunted him. The project wasn't just successful, it had ignited a spark within him that made him eager to learn, to grow, and to elevate others in the process. Reflecting on his journey, Jake now understood his role was to cultivate an environment that nurtured progress, to champion the unique perspectives that each team member brought, and to truly celebrate shared successes. He had proven that teamwork is not simply a strategy, it is a vital element of creativity and resilience essential for any achievement. In this rebirth, he realized he had conjured far more than a project, he had unwittingly forged an unrivaled commitment to fostering collaborative innovation. This is the legacy he would carry forward, a profound change in both his professional destiny and personal ethos. Now, more than ever, he recognized the value in pushing his boundaries, extending trust to others, and that the growth he sought took root not in isolation but in community, a binding commitment to lift each other higher, driven by a shared vision of excellence. The importance of this journey must not be underestimated, it is a lesson to embrace. For those who seek true transformation, remember that it's not merely the outcome that defines your path but the courage to be vulnerable, to innovate together, and to celebrate success as a shared endeavor. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share. True fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.